Yo, what is up, Guardians? I am Sincere, and today I will be walking you through why now is the best time to play Middle Tree Striker Titan, aka the Thundercrash Titan. Let's jump into it. In the most recent TWAB, Bungie released a preview for the upcoming nerfs to Dunemarches. To summarize the changes Bungie is going to be making in in-game scenarios, this means that you will still be able to Dune chain to nearby opponents, but chains no longer proc off of dead bodies, and you can no longer double chain for accidental one-shot knockout melees or take insane damage from being around a dead body. Or, quite frankly, like most of us, happening to be in close proximity to someone who got meleeed. These two nerfs in tandem create more stability and less what the moments for you and your fire team in the Crucible. To clarify, this doesn't mean that Dunemarches are all of a sudden weak, they just are no longer god tier, but they should maintain their utility. But enough about Dunemarches, let's talk about the Thundercrash Titan. First things first, I have a confession to make. As a self-proclaimed PvP player, I used to think this subclass was gimmicky and mid at best. Like the rest of us Titan lovers, I either played bottom tree Sunbreaker or bottom tree Striker. Me, mostly Sunbreaker. And if you're also like me, you probably only dabbled with this subclass just to nuke bosses. But before we get into the why, let's walk through the subclass itself. Thundercrash. Hurtle through the air like a missile and crash into enemies to inflict meteoric damage. Ballistic Slam. After sprinting, leap into the air and used to slam into the ground and damage nearby enemies. Inertia Override. Picking up ammo during a slide reloads your equipped weapon, grants melee energy and increases weapon damage for a short time. Impact Conversion. Hitting targets with Ballistic Slam grants super energy and activates Inertia Override. This whole subclass revolves around the Inertia Override perk and maximizing its uptime. Now that we've gone through the subclass breakdown, let's talk about the why. If I could put into one sentence why I recommend the Thundercrash Titan so much right now, it would be this one sentence. I do not have to play like an ape. In fact, the subclass punishes you for brainlessly rushing in, rewarding a more methodical approach, which we will discuss in the tips and tricks section. You can be more dynamic while using the toolkit. You don't have to chase plays around while you're in your super, burning super energy and getting caught out of position with your pants down while chasing grenade-eating warlocks, stompy hunters, or Dunemarch skating titans. Thundercrash Titan allows you to essentially be what Bungie designed the class as, a missile. Surgical strikes with either Ballistic Slam or Thundercrash, with Inertia Override to help sustain damage output in the neutral game. This isn't to say that it's better than the more accessible bottom tree Striker or Sunbreaker, but it does have a higher skill ceiling in my opinion, and you are rewarded for it. As a player, I'm a big fan of taking pride in your gameplay, so the whole crayon eating flowchart playstyle does not really appeal to me, and if you're like me, you definitely should give this a go. Before we jump into loadout and mod recommendations, I'll preface my comments by saying, my general philosophy in Destiny is to use what brings out the best of your toolkit, while allowing you to enjoy the game and raise your skill ceiling at the same time without it becoming a crutch. The Titan toolkit in general is focused a lot around close quarters combat, and is more effective in the close to mid-range areas, which is why the average Titan player tends to straight line opponents, earning Titans the whole crayon eater ape nickname, but I digress. In my opinion, to take advantage of this subclass's explosive damage output with Inertia Override, I recommend using weapons that deal high burst damage. This means using hand cannons for primary weapon burst damage, or a shotgun or fusion rifle to clean up kills or make aggressive pushes. Also, after you deploy the Ballistic Slam, it's probably a good idea to whip out a hand cannon or a shotgun just to clean up your kills. You can obviously still snipe, but sniping on Titan isn't something that I would recommend off the bat. On screen, you can see my current loadout and stat distribution. I won't go through every mod here, just know that I prefer high discipline, recovery, and intellect with my builds. I especially like high discipline because lightning grenades give you huge versatility both offensively and defensively. If you would like me to do a deeper Titan PvP mod / build guide, let me know in the description below. My exotic of choice is the One-Eyed Mask. I like these with Thundercrash Titan because you do lose that health regen you naturally get from Bottom Tree Striker or Bottom Tree Sunbreaker, so these act as a good replacement without relying on ability kills, pairing well with Inertia Override and Ballistic Slam. We've already covered Dunemarch nerfs, but I will just make a quick personal note on these. My playgroup often asks me why I don't run Dunemarches, and the short answer is I find them ugly, and I have to be drippy while dishing out the pain. But that being said, I do want to dabble with the Insurmountable Skullfort to see how it impacts things in Crucible. Again, if there's something you'd like to see, let me know, or if it's something that you've already done yourself, drop a comment below. For this section, we'll be walking through super and ability tips and tricks, as well as ability perk usage. Timestamps below if you'd like to skip. Tip number 1. Thundercrash is the ultimate shutdown or entry super. There are very few supers that can challenge this on reaction. There are a few exceptions to this, being the stasis supers, especially the Warlock and Hunter supers. Despite this, Thundercrash is still very ideal for Trials of Osiris or competitive playlists. In 6v6 modes, you also have the comfort of knowing you can shut down almost any super at will, denying the enemy team orbs from their roaming supers. You can cancel the Ballistic Slam animation into Thundercrash for some insane super speed Thundercrashing. Be careful, this is extremely difficult to control, but very useful when you need to cover a lot of ground to get to the enemy. You also don't always have to kill with a direct impact. You can actually kill your opponents by simply driving by them if they're close enough to you. Learning how to control this super is mega important and not as easy as you might assume. Tip number 2. Ballistic Slam. Ballistic Slam is useful to clean up weak opponents trying to get away or flush them out as they hide behind cover. It's also a great tool to entry frag, but be careful, you do need to set this up. My pro tip is to use lightning grenades to deal damage first or distract opponents, and then boom, flying with a Ballistic Slam to ruin the party. This is why I recommend high discipline builds with this subclass. Side note, dunking on people is extremely fun, extremely satisfying to pull off, and remember, after you dunk on someone, you do get super energy back and it activates Inertia Override. Gentle reminder, you don't need to kill, you simply need to deal damage. If you've ever been on the receiving end of a Ballistic Slam, you'll remember it also stuns and knocks you back briefly, letting the user recover before you're able to shoot back. My final pro tip on Ballistic Slam is to use it as an aerial movement tool, covering longer distance than Shiver Strike and shoulder charges. Tip number 3 is around the creme de la creme of this subclass, the jewel in the crown, Inertia Override. Inertia Override is simply amazing. As a Thundercrash Titan, you want the highest uptime on this perk as possible. To be more precise, Inertia Override gives you a plus 20% damage boost with fairly modest activation conditions. All you have to do is slide over an ammo brick. Since Inertia Override is an ability perk, it also stacks with other weapon perks such as Memento Mori, Rampage, Kill Clip, and Soul Devourer. On 140 RPM hand cannons, this is a 2-tapping machine. If that wasn't good enough, in general moment-to-moment gameplay, this means you'll never have to reload your weapons, so you're always ready to fight. With ability nerfs on the horizon, more emphasis should naturally shift towards the neutral game, and Inertia Override has high uptime even if you aren't a top fragger. I hope I've inspired you to give this subclass a go, or at the very least to see how devastating this subclass truly can be. I'm personally always surprised why I don't see it very often in the Crucible. Granted, roaming supers tend to dominate 6v6 playlists in the Crucible, but it's even more surprising how little I see this in Trials or the comp playlist. That's all for today, ladies and gentlemen. Your boy Sincere signing out.